Last night on his program, Chris Cuomo apologized to his viewers after it was revealed that he provided advice to his brother, Andrew Cuomo, on how to deal with the sexual harassment allegations against him. Here's a bit of that apology.
Being a journalist and a brother to a politician is unique and a unique challenge, and I have a unique responsibility to balance those roles. It's not always easy. People can say and write what they want, but I want you to know the truth. How I helped my brother also matters. When my brother's situation became turbulent, being looped into calls with other friends of his and advisors that did include some of his staff, I understand why that was a problem for CNN. It will not happen again. It was a mistake because I put my colleagues here, who I believe are the best in the business, in a bad spot. I never intended for that. I would never intend for that. And I am sorry for that.
So there's obviously more of that. We want to provide a little bit of additional commentary that he provided, including saying, now, today, there are stories out there about me offering my brother advice. Of course I do. This is no revelation. I've said it publicly and I certainly have never hidden it. I can be objective about just about any topic, but not about my family. And so CNN has already said before he put out that apology that he is not going to be disciplined for that, although they indicated that they had some sort of problem not rising to the level of disciplining. But that's his apology. What do you think about it?
I don't even think it's necessary. So I want to be very clear here. So number one, I do not like Andrew Cuomo. It's not personal. I don't know the guy personally. I think his policies suck. I think he's been a disaster, both in the sexual harassment cases, but really the deaths at the nursing homes are deaths. And not only did his negligence contribute to that, but even worse, the corruption, the money that he took from the companies that run the nursing homes, and then he drives people that have COVID from the hospitals into the nursing homes so they can make more money. It's unconscionable, let alone the cutting the budget for healthcare in New York. Oops, and then you have a pandemic and then you don't have enough materials. I mean, the corruption of Andrew Cuomo knows no bounds. In fact, there was a whole committee to study corruption in New York. Once they started studying him, he shut it down. So he got away with all of these things for so long. So as you can tell, I got no love for Andrew Cuomo. So Chris Cuomo gives him advice. Of course, he's his brother. Of course he's gonna give him advice. But that's not what, the thing that bothers me the most is the flaw ethics of corporate media. Right? We're all so objective here. And Chris was not objective on this one, and he endangered the great reputation the rest of us have for objectivity. What are you guys talking about, man? You're not objective on any of these stories. You have a bias just like everybody else does. We are honest about our perspective. We say we're homo progressives, right? And in a way, Fox News used to be the biggest liars. Of course, they called it fair and balanced, right? And that was Roger Ailes trolling everybody before people knew what trolling even was, right? But eventually Fox News dropped that. They dropped it because everybody knows they're the conservative station. Okay, good. At least I know, no problem, right? Nobody expects Sean Hannity to be unbiased. That's ridiculous.
Unbalanced, maybe.
Unbalanced, sure, but unbiased, no. But CNN is just as biased. Oh no, we're in the center. Thank you for admitting it. The center is still a perspective. In fact, it's the center of Washington, which is not at all the center of the country. That is the center of the corporate world. The ones that think, oh, corporate donors are awesome. The politicians are not corrupt. Don't believe your lying eyes. Joe Manchin takes millions of dollars and so does Ted Cruz, but don't look at that. The Mercer family gave Ted Cruz $13 million in the primary. Don't worry about it. We never talk about that. The Mercers own Ted Cruz. No. It would be biased to give you facts. We don't want to give you facts. Why? Because we want to protect the corporate world. We want to protect the centrist view in Washington. Of course you're biased. In fact, Chris Cuomo's bias is the least of their bias. Because at least we all know, right? Not only is his last name Cuomo, but he obviously has said 1,000 times how much he cares about his brother. Of course he's gonna talk to his brother about his political scandal. We all know that, right? But Jeff Zucker and Anderson Cooper and Wolf Blitzer, and it's not about personalities. I'm just naming the folks who are anchors and obviously the executive of CNN and Zucker. they're way more biased. And the fact that they hide their bias, to me, is a much bigger problem. Ramesh, what do you think?
Yeah, there's so many different places to go here. So first of all, you're so right that elite and corporate media is always biased. What's particularly odious about elite corporate media or mainstream media is that it claims neutrality. But there is no such thing as neutrality when you have a deeply symbiotic relationship, for example, with former President Trump. He was the best friend on terms of ratings, not only to the social media companies that I write about, but also MSNBC, CNN, and so on. They, as per manufacturing consent, we can date that back 30 years, Noam Chomsky's great work on the subject, but I study political economy of media. We can actually see how the stories that are sourced very rarely cover working class peoples and their concerns, climate justice issues, immigrant justice issues. Really, it's focused on the sensational and the spectacle. So for an elite Italian American from New York to say that he is going to help his brother out and claim some sort of ethical, sort of conundrum or compass around it is just sort of not surprising to me at all. However, I think what I really want to focus on is the nature of Chris Cuomo's advice to his brother, who, you're totally right, is a terrible governor, has handed over the keys of a post-COVID future to tech oligarchs like not Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Eric Schmidt, and so on. And these are the people who've been making billions of dollars amidst this pandemic. But the nature of the advice, if you look at that story in some detail, the nature of the advice is Chris Cuomo tells his brother, call them all cancel culture. What are they doing there? They're playing into a right-wing hateful talking point. They're playing into the Jordan Petersons and Tucker Carlsons of the world, instead of actually showing any compassion or empathy or understanding of how so many women have been violated by this governor. And for the fact that Chris Cuomo is willing to give Republican identity politics, hateful talking points to his brother, the governor, to me, is what's deeply offensive to me about this.
Well, and I would at least hope, we've been having debates all throughout this week about cancel culture, and there's nothing I hate more than the way that term has evolved and the way that it's deployed, is that it doesn't mean anything, and most of the people using the term know that it doesn't mean anything, except what it means, whatever you want it to mean. I'm not surprised that he offered advice. Ramesh's point, I think, is well taken. The nature is more important than the fact that it exists. I don't necessarily care about that. I think that if there was an issue with the relationship between them, I think 99% of it existed before we found out about this advice thing. It was that you have, a guy with a very big platform, an incredibly high profile journalist or commentator on the news who won't be able to talk about his brother in a rational way, as any of us wouldn't be able to. I have two brothers. You want me to start talking about them? It's not gonna be pretty, probably. And if they become public figures, it's gonna get rough. That's just the nature of it. It's weird to not be able to speak in an unbiased fashion about the governor of one of the biggest, most powerful states in the country. But that has nothing to do with the advice. That's just baked into the fact that we do dynasties in America. So yeah, I think that the apology is okay. I think that maybe, as Ramesh points out, talking a bit more about the content of the apology rather than just the fact that it existed, I think might be a good second step.
Yeah, so Effecto seems to agree with Ramesh, saying, but no apology for laundering his brother's reputation while the elderly were dying and covered up by Cuomo, which is arguably a much greater conflict of interest. So look, we want to ask you guys about it because I suspect I'm in the minority on this, but we'll see. So tyt.com/polls. So should he have been punished is basically the essence of the question. Face disciplinary action for helping his brother Andrew strategize about how to handle this scandal. Yes or no? And I think actually, now let me go to YouTube Super Chat for one more viewer here. Detroit Microsound said, Cuomo's colleagues at CNN are some of the best in the business of selling wars and terrorism. So look, are there things that Chris Cuomo did that could be problematic? Yes, of course. So, well, it comes back to his brother again. If he really got preferential treatment on getting COVID testing, I think that was one of the allegations against Chris Cuomo. Well, that Andrew Cuomo gave that to his brother and hence an allegation against Andrew Cuomo, that's a bigger problem because that's using your elite privileges to, step in front of the line, okay?
Yeah.
So that I would not give no pass for. But in this context, when Jake Tapper the other day said, Hamas started this conflict by firing rockets into Israel, that's total propaganda. That's not objective at all. I mean, and then every anchor on CNN, Medicare for All costs $34 trillion or $32 trillion, without mentioning that it saves $34 trillion. Jake Tapper, Anderson Cooper did that repeatedly. Every time they frame a progressive issue, how are you going to afford that? We're not biased. What do you mean? Oh my God, the Cuomos have a slight issue. Squirrel.
Can I add on also, I think that this particular instance is so much less important than the general issue that, Sean Hannity pretended that Michael Cohen wasn't his lawyer while covering him on stories after story after story. And beyond that, okay, so Chris Cuomo and Andrew Cuomo are brothers. Okay, that is a closer relationship than you will find in most cases, but they all know each other. They all worked at the same law firm before. They all date the same people. They're all gonna end up working at the other networks. They're all prepping to work as press secretaries in the administration. They're all so tightly enmeshed together. Now that's not one specific scandal, but it's a big issue for the country. And it's another reason why you should watch us. We don't know anyone and they won't talk to us. We have no influence whatsoever. We're complete outsiders because they would never let us in.
And you guys are making such an important point, which is really, what are the stories that the corporate media actually covers and how do they frame those stories? That's really what the analysis is about, right? So if there's a spectacle like this besieging of Gaza, they'll cover it. But they won't really cover that the United States is the puppet master of the Israeli, sort of apartheid state, right? They won't cover that. So it's really about trying to focus on the spectacle, the kind of trace that is the spectacle, rather than getting to issues and trying to transform issues that are actually harming people that can be in the image of justice and change.
Yeah, I'm gonna say one last caveat to John's point. We're actually even a little bit better than he said. I'm gonna keep it real with you guys, right? So he's right, when those guys, they don't wanna criticize each other because they want access, they go to the same parties, they know each other, they're friendly, etc. You say, well, hey, Cenk, you've been on Chris Cuomo's show and here you are a quarter of the way defending him, right? And one, I'll tell you that, right? I've said it.
And I was on once.
Yeah.
Notice they didn't have me back.
Right, and we've talked about that in the past. We own up to the things that we're part of. But guys, look, we just saw it, right? I love Bernie Sanders. And when he didn't fight hard enough on the $15 minimum wage, who's the only one in media that criticized Bernie Sanders? Everybody else applauded him for saying, oh, no, don't fight, right? No, we pushed him. Even though we love him, we criticized him, we critiqued him, we did a petition against him, right? The Just Democrats, so I like the Just Democrats. I founded the Justice Democrats. So yes, I'm rooting for them in a big, big way. But you've now heard me criticize them maybe hundreds of times. That's actually unbiased. Here's our perspective, but we're not wedded to individuals, we're not wedded to partisanship, and we're going to be honest about what the actual facts are. So if I saw that out of CNN, I would be shocked. I'd fall out of my chair. But honestly, also MSNBC, also the New York Times, I could go on and on. The New York Times with their incredibly arrogant attitude of we are the objective ones. And then every framing is corporations are awesome, politicians are fantastic, they're completely honest, etc. It's total corporate, it's corporate media, that's it.
It's the motivating factor of advertisers and their agendas, just like Biden's motivating factor in large part are his donors. And this is all corruption. And this is not gonna serve the public interest or people's interest unless we get to the actual issues, which they're not gonna do.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.